I'm back with two more book reviews. I'm talking about Rage by Lester Fabian Braithwaite and Dancing on My Own by Simon Wu. First up, we have Rage on Being Queer, Black, Brilliant, and Completely Over It by Lester Fabian Braithwaite. This is both a book of essays and a book of cultural criticism, sort of exploring the duality of being Black and gay and sort of existing in this liminality where Braithwaite is from Guyana. So he writes really beautifully about like coming to America and sort of having all of his experiences be scrambled by like absorbing all of these images from the media, right? I think two of his strongest essays were the one where he was interrogating his relationship to his queerness and how he hates the gay community and he feels very isolated because of its, very, very, very straight mode of whiteness, or not straight mode, but like very, very dominant whiteness, especially here in New York. And I loved the essay about his anger and sort of existing again in this in between and not really being able to do anything about it. There's also a really, really great essay about his body and the way that he's like working out to sort of make up for a little bit of those insecurities. One thing that I could have used less of was this book has two separate essays about like dating outside of your race and interrogating that desire, which I do think is a very, very strong impulse for especially writers of color who, date out. I will say I didn't need two of them. I think they could have been combined into one. I understand that one was a more piece of cultural criticism and like writing about the culture of Black queer men who like date white guys and then they like have these weird, intense, like lots and lots and lots of feelings about it, obviously, because there were two separate essays about it. One was more a piece of cultural criticism and one was more about his like personal experience and like dating and hooking up, this app, we can't say anything. But I did like it a lot. I think Braithwaite is brilliant. I think he writes brilliantly about the collapse of the media industry, about being Black, about being gay, about existing in this weird position in society where you're both like super masculinized and super dehumanized. And I think he just is a genius. The book is also very funny. Dancing on My Own by Simon Wu. This is essays on art, collectivity, and joy. I really liked this. I loved the essay where Wu wrote about recreating his childhood home in The Sims. He worked at a museum. And there's also a really cool essay about partying in Berlin. I always say this on Goodreads. I feel like there's not enough literature about partying. Not enough people are writing about like going out and the experience of being amongst other people. I think writing is such a solitary profession that a lot of these people end up being like a little bit socially awkward. So I loved that Wu was writing about, going out and doing stuff. These essays are incredibly well researched. He writes about Orientalism, who writes about collections both large scale and small. And as someone who has no relationship with the like capital A art world, this was really, really interesting to sort of dive in and learn more about what it takes and like who gets selected, who gets chosen, who is deemed important, capital I, versus who isn't. I should have made this last month for Nonfiction November, but if you were still looking for some slim, queer nonfiction books to read for the end of the year, I highly recommend both. I think they're interesting, I think they're incisive, and if you're looking for books that are deeply human, fully realized, and very well researched, then I actually recommend both. And thank you to Tiny Rep Books for sending me a copy of Rage.